Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Devy Dose. I'm your host, Eric at EK Baller. Here with us once again is my good friend Kyle.
Happy to be here.
Good
You
to have
know,
you back. It's always my friend.
rough day yesterday, but we're making it through. Other games were on. They were pretty good. So,
It's been highs and lows for you this month, my friend.
no, mostly highs. And I mean, at the end of the day, 11-1, possibly still in the playoff. I mean, you can't complain about that, especially with a second-year head coach.
Yeah. I think you're still in the playoff. I think it'd be foolish to drop you guys any further than 4. And if you do get dropped, it's to 5 or 6, and I think you can easily get back into the top
Yeah.
4.
I mean, Ohio State and Michigan still play each other, so one of them has to lose.
Yeah, exactly. And if you continue to win out with dominant performances over the next few weeks, I think that gets you right back in there. So we're kind of already launching into the games of the week. Again, yeah, tough one for Tennessee. That game was hard to watch a lot too. We've been used to seeing the high flying offense, and Georgia put the clamps on you. Except Stetson, he had some high flying action.
Yeah, I mean that's our defense is just going to give up some of those to everybody once a game. The offense just has to score to negate those couple of plays, but didn't really happen this week.
Yeah, you guys need to put up 35 or 40 every week, but usually you do. Stetson Bennett looked good for an old man playing college football. And what's the kid? Lad McConkey.
Oh yeah, future Patriot right there.
Yeah, right. Not to broil on the stereotypes, but yeah. I mean, honestly, he looked good. Got loose over the, got loose.
I think he's a decent slot possession receiver, but I don't think he's definitely not anything special.
Yeah,
Bowers is special though. That man is insane.
Who is?
Brock Bowers.
Oh, dude.
It's been said time and time again, but that man is special.
He's fun to watch, man. He moves like a guy half his size, but trucks guys like he's another 20 pounds heavier.
Absolutely.
All right, so we got a couple other games we wanted to talk about. Get through this. Go Tigers, says Kyle.
Yeah, I mean coming into the week, I was like, if Tennessee loses, then at least during the 7:00 games, I know who I have to root for. Both those teams won. Notre Dame beats Clemson, and then LSU beats Alabama. I'm a bit of a closeted LSU fan, kind of my team in the SEC West. So happy to see them take down Bama. Happy to see anyone take down Bama.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm teamless, right? Because I'm from New England and I went to BU, so BC is our rival, right? And LSU was kind of my adopted team. My first few years, I got really into college football because it was, like Joe Burrow era, and it was a hell of a lot of fun to watch that year. And man, they've been a tough watch, for the beginning of the season if you're looking for that kind of, explosive pass game. But is it just me, or do you think that Jaden Daniels might be putting it together a little bit?
I don't know if he's necessarily fully putting it together, but he's doing things to win football games, and he's making a lot of plays with his legs, which has been the most impressive part to me.
Yeah, he's had some passing touchdowns the past few weeks too. I didn't catch the box score from last night, but week before I think he had 3 passing touchdowns and had like 50 fantasy points or something like that. So that was
22 for 32, 182 yards and 2 touchdowns through the air, and then 18 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown on the ground.
That sounds like a Jaden Daniels stat line. All right, you get some other ones you had here on your list. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, I got a couple of coaches who aren't quite in the top tier, but are definitely going to be getting that kind of hype come the offseason if there's some openings. And that's Lance Leipold at Kansas. I mean, what that man did with Buffalo was outstanding. What he's doing now at the Jayhawks, a basketball school through and through, is insane. Took down some good, tough opponents early in the season, this week they took down Oklahoma State, the 16th ranked team in the nation, 37-16. Took their goalposts, threw them in the lake. Always rooting for teams to put their goalposts in the lake. Even though they tried to take a shot at Tennessee on Twitter, I mean, we'll let it slide.
You'll let it slide this time. And the thing I love about Kansas too is, I mean, that was where Jalen Daniels is playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, he went down, and it doesn't seem like they missed a beat.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Bean's not necessarily a bad quarterback either. He has some starting experience at North Texas, if I remember right. So, but it's Lance Leipold. It's a run first team through and through, and it's fun to watch. And then my other game of the week I had was Liberty beating Arkansas 21-19. Hugh Freeze, that team's been through some stuff too. Like they're on their third or fourth starting quarterback this season. Yeah. I think Day Hunter, their running back, missed the first few games. Not like the best talent ever or anything, but they've lost one game all season. They just beat an SEC team. That's really impressive because and Auburn might come knocking at Hugh Freeze's door, get him back in the SEC.
Yeah, I could see that. And Arkansas isn't an easy out either,
No, absolutely not.
There's holes on that team, but I think a lot of KJ and obviously talk about teams that can run the ball. They've been running all over people all year. I'm surprised to see them go down, but I think Liberty's a little bit underrated. I get that one kid, one wide receiver that put up some points last year, and he's come on again lately. He's on, like my own personal waiver list. I didn't put him on this one, but I'll look him up later in the show.
So Demario Douglas.
Yeah, Demario Douglas, right? He's a little guy, right? So probably really limited NFL future, but Fantrax has him as
5'8".
Yeah. But productive as a freshman, whether it was red shirt or true freshman last year. Obviously productive.
He's actually a third year freshman last year because of a red shirt and a COVID year.
Right,
so
still, I mean, whatever. You like seeing the production, and you probably got him for another year or two in CFB. If they get some consistency at quarterback there, he could be a guy that really makes a difference on college football rosters. The games that I wanted to talk about, Ohio State versus Northwestern. I love seeing the underdog hang with Ohio State. Rough day for CJ Stroud, although it was nice to see him producing with his legs. Someone said on Twitter, "Oh man, his worst game of the year," and he might have helped his draft stock because he's been running a little bit. And mostly it was fun for me because I'm a Evan Hull truther from way back. I love a big, fast running back that catches passes like that, and I think we got to see him do it against not the best defense, but a real defense on a big stage. And I think that's going to help his draft stock, which is exciting. I still don't know if he's a day two guy. Maybe if he comes back and plays one more year and has a really dominant, senior year. But I don't know. What do you think about Hull? Do you think he's got a shot at draft capital?
I mean, maybe like a Dameon Pierce range, fourth round.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think he's a day two pick, but he's an intriguing early day three pick for me.
He's my guy in this draft class that I think's a day three guy if he comes out, but that still has an impact in the NFL. So he's one of the guys. If he gets day three capital, I'm going to draft him in the third and fourth round every rookie draft and love it. The other game I thought was worth talking about that I watched was A&M and in Florida, and I thought Richardson played well. I've never been, I've always seen the upside. Obviously, it's impossible not to see it, but with the exception of a few plays, he played pretty consistently, and I think that's what everyone's been waiting to see out of him. And A&M's maybe not the defense that they've been in past years, but they're certainly not a joke.
Especially with a couple guys out too.
Yeah, right. You said 6 starters or something, right? We're missing.
It was like 12 starters combined on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and also I heard on the broadcast that they started 32 freshmen That's a lot,
Yeah.
or the 32 two freshmen on the active roster, which is crazy. And then a couple other guys that stood out to me in that game was obviously Evan Stewart, who is my man. I love Stewart. I had him as the wide receiver one in that class coming in. Right or wrong, he's by far the most productive freshman wide receiver so far, and it's shown on the tape too. It's not just stuff in the stat sheet. He's definitely had some highlights. And I thought Trevor Etienne has played really well as well, and that's coming through in the stats a little bit. We thought he'd be buried behind Johnson and whoever the other guy was that was a veteran there, but he's on the field, man. What do you think about ETN?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good little 1-2 punch that Florida has with Montreal and ETN now, especially with the way ETN's been playing in recent weeks. Definitely an exciting little prospect because of his ability to catch the ball as well.
Okay,
on the other side, Devon Achane had a pretty good game as well, 16 for 122 and two scores.
Yeah, I love Achane. He's got to be a day two guy, right? I mean,
what he can bring to an offense with his speed is definitely really intriguing for NFL teams, in my opinion.
And you just got to see, you got to say, if guys like James Cook can get day two capital, and yeah, I mean, it only takes one team, right? Why can't Achane? He's what he does, other people can't do, right? He has special traits and abilities. You're not going to run him up the gut 20 times a game, but he can change the balance of a game. And does he return kicks for them too?
I'm not totally sure, but I definitely wish he did.
Yeah, well, I can see him, coming on as a rookie and getting that work, right, and making an impact that way. And I think that'll be attractive to teams well if he does have that as part of his portfolio. For some reason, I can't remember if he does or not.
It was Stewart in this game, but I'm not sure if Achane has done it in the past or what.
Yeah.
He returned kickoffs last year and this year a little bit.
Yeah, and then the guy that's hurt was returning him too. Who's the other wide receiver there that's super fast?
Is it Muhammad?
Muhammad? Aeneas Smith.
Anaya Smith, yeah.
Aeneas Smith, yeah. I think he was returning kicks. And then Yoel Keith Brown was as well. He's kind of like that same guy, little, not as good Tyreek Hill type, fast with the ball. Okay. I mean, I guess we will continue into the stars of the week. We certainly hit some studs already. You want to lead it off with your first guy? Because he's one of my favorites as well.
Yeah, Puka Nakua, I think. Nakua? I think it's Nakua.
I'd probably say it wrong. So.
BYU up against Boise State. He puts together 14 receptions, 157 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Leads the Cougars to their 5th win of the season against a pretty stout Boise State team.
Yeah, I love Puka, man. He's been a guy for me for a couple of years. I wish I had more shares because he's one of those guys where if he comes out this year, you can't really. I don't know. He's probably not a round 2 guy. Maybe sneaks into round 3, but seems more likely he's a day 3 prospect at this point. But man, the talent is there. It's just been injuries and then that atrocious Washington offense. Washington or Washington State? He's Washington, right?
Washington.
Yeah.
Washington.
It was literally impossible to produce in. And we've seen, with Jalen McMillan and Rome, what it looks like when, those guys are in a new offense now.
It is crazy how much talent they wasted in the Lake era.
Yeah, man. My first guy was Caleb Johnson, Iowa running back. Gosh, that team has been hard to watch. I thought Caleb was going to break out earlier. I liked Gavin Williams coming into the season. It's nice to see the young man run amok. 22 for 200 and a score. You like Caleb?
I like any Iowa running back who's going to take the lion's share behind that offensive line. I mean, that's what we expect Iowa to do on offense, and they haven't done it very well this season. But it's fun. It's nice to finally see someone break out, even if it wasn't, Gavin Williams, who I also had quite a few shares of.
Yeah, a lot. That hurt me. Now, what do you think's been the matter at the beginning of the season? Just the line not. What did they have injuries, or was there new guys on
Uh,
the line? Or
I don't follow him close enough to tell you, but it doesn't make sense considering the history that program has,
yeah,
especially in recent years.
yeah, it's not like Petrus was like a new. He's obviously not
Yeah,
good. He's been that way for 3 years, like, and they're still been able to produce up to now. So, yeah. I mean, I'm glad to see them put it together. Okay, what do you got here next?
Josh Downs, a guy we talked a little bit about a couple of weeks ago, obviously, with when we talked about the top wide receivers. He definitely is one, and he continues to prove that 15 receptions, 166 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah,
Him and Drake May, man. Those two have a little connection going, and it's something to watch. Drake May, he's having just an insane season. It's hard to not move him up.
I don't know if you offered me Drake May for my Quinn Ewers shares right now, I'll pull the trigger. I'd rather have May. He's shown us more. You know what I mean? With arguably a poorer surrounding cast, I just I don't know, man. What's not to like about the kid? Like we talked about pocket presence a little bit before the show. He's got that in spades. At what's he 20 years old?
Yeah.
Just the quick decision making, the quick release. And I hope Downs buys him a car when he gets drafted.
I think he owes Sam Howell one too. So
yeah, for real. Yeah. My next guy was Taj Washington. Washington was a thing last year too, but had mostly been replaced for the beginning of the season by superior talents, right? Jordan Addison and Mario Williams. 2 games in a row now, he's really dominated. 7 for 112 and 2. And yeah, I mean, it's some of that Caleb Williams, sure, but still, like you earn the production. It's not like there's no other wide receivers on that field. I don't know. I think he's a better player than we've given him credit for. Is he an NFL guy? I don't know, but certainly
Mario was out this week, wasn't he?
He was. They were both out this week.
Okay.
I think last week too. Both
Okay.
were out. Yeah. I don't know that Mario was out this week. He was definitely out last week, but I assume you're right. I assume that's why Taj got all the targets. You got anything else in Washington?
Not really. Don't really stay up for those late Pac-12 games. For being honest, I like watching the points come in from Caleb Williams on my fantasy teams, but
yeah, wake up to some nice surprises in the morning.
Oh yeah, I beat Jake this week off of Cameron Ward late night heroics and against Stanford. So love some late Pac-12 games for my fantasy teams just to wake up and see a win.
Yeah, they pooped all over Stanford too.
I love to see that too.
Okay, who you got? Eric Gray.
Eric Gray, former Vol, was a big fan of him over in Tennessee. I was a believer last year when he left for Oklahoma, but they didn't put it together last year. And now he seems to finally have the role, be the lead back. Obviously, Kennedy Brooks went to the NFL last season, so Eric Gray's been the guy. He's taken advantage of it most of the time. This week he put up 23 carries, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns, and added 8 receptions for 58 yards. It's been interesting to see this Oklahoma team. I mean, you get Brent Venables as your head coach, you expect to have a strong defense, right? But it's been an offensive showcase every time they win a game, and they still weren't able to win this week despite putting up 35 points.
Yeah, the defense definitely has not been there. I mean, it's not like Alabama hung 38 on you. It's the Baylor Bears.
Yeah.
They have not been excellent this year. They've run the ball well for the most part. But, yeah, you don't think of them as like some explosive offense. Man, I love seeing Gray do good. I'm with you. I'm a sucker for running backs with elusiveness, with lateral ability, guys that can make you miss, guys that catch passes, right? So I didn't take many shares last year because he was so expensive, for a guy going into an unknown situation. But I'm stoked for him that he's broken out. And now I wish I had more on my roster because, 3 weeks in a row now, he's been over 100 yards rushing. One of those was 176 and 2. And, and he's caught at least a couple of passes every one of the past few weeks. Man, he's starting to look like a legit prospect, You get the questions, right? Like, why couldn't he beat Kennedy Brooks for playing time last year? And that's valid.
And why couldn't he separate himself even at Tennessee?
Yeah, exactly.
It was still a 2-back system back there when he was there.
Wasn't the other back decent too?
Was it Tyon Evans?
Tyon Evans, yeah.
It might have been. No, it might have been small.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was small, but I can't remember. You guys had a lot of plus and minus in the past couple of years.
Oh, yeah, a ton.
Yeah, but, I think Eric Gray is another one of those guys. He's going to get drafted, probably not, round 3, but he's a guy that I'll be watching closely. And
it was Ty Chandler.
Ty Chandler. I mean, can you Chandler got drafted in the 6th round, 5th round, right?
Yeah.
Was he a UDFA? But I mean, no, he was drafted. So I don't know. You can't knock a guy for being in a timeshare with an NFL player, right? I mean,
you can if you want him to be a day 2 pick, but if you're just thinking that he's an NFL player, I agree.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I think last year coming into it, we had hopes that he was going to be that, Ramondre Stevenson, like Trey Sermon type, like take over and dominate, but not what we got. My last guy, I just want to shout out because the guy I'd never heard of. And I like seeing a name that's new instead of us talking about the same, 15 or 20 guys here over and over. It was Edward Sadie from, let me look that up because I don't remember. He was computer slow. Weekly leaders. Sadie from Temple. The first time we have shouted out a Temple player on this show ever, I'm sure. But 24 carries, 265 yards, 11 yards per carry against USF, against a little bit of a lower tier team. But, just wanted to give the young man some props for a big game. You're muted.
I'm muted. I'll be honest with you. I had not watched a Temple football game.
Why would you?
I did see a tweet yesterday from Chris Moxley over at Campus to Canton. He was saying that the true freshman that Temple has at quarterback, EJ Warner, is pretty legit, at least according to Chris. And I take Chris's word for what it's worth most of the time.
Yeah, he's sharp. When he catches someone, it's worth looking into for sure.
Yeah, definitely somebody you could look at for CFF for the next 3 years. If he's going to put together performances like this one, 344 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep, that is a valuable piece. All right, you got a couple other guys here, and we've talked about that. I'm on board with both of these guys. You want to lead us off with Scott?
Yeah, my first one is Tyler Scott, the wide receiver from Cincinnati. Obviously, Alec Pierce moved on to the NFL last season, and Tyler Scott's taken that wide receiver 1 role in Cincinnati by the reins, and he's had a darn good season, been quite the CFF producer as well. This week he had 10 for 139 and 2, and a 20-10 win against Navy.
Yeah, and not the first big game he's had either. He caught my eye in September. He had the big game against Indiana for 185 and 3. And
yes.
And before that, he dominated Miami of Ohio, it looks like. The past few years, they've had a wide receiver 1 that was worth owning there. And honestly, it looks like he will surpass Alec Pierce's best season output if he continues at this pace. Pierce never went much over 800, I think. That was one of my knocks for him, although, they ran the crap out of the ball on those teams. Like you were saying, though, really different player. 5'10", still fast, but not that, line him up and beat him deep kind of guy.
Yeah, now Pierce was an interesting prospect because if I remember right, there wasn't a ton of hype like before the camp started, and then he went to the Senior Bowl, and scouts started raving about like the way he used his hips in his routes and all this weird kind of nuanced stuff that the scouts seemed to like. So, I mean, Pierce definitely wasn't a producer, but had quite an odd path to his draft capital, kind of like I can't really think of anybody else. I was going to say Kyle Phillips, but he didn't really get drafted high either.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those offenses where they didn't really throw the ball very much, especially in his first couple of years. Pierce caught my attention just because he's an athletic freak.
Yeah, that too. That definitely showed at the camp and the combine as well.
Yeah. Combine's not everything, but it's certainly a reason to pay attention to a guy and look a little more. And honestly, I really liked his film too. I thought he didn't just win deep. He had some decent work on short routes, in breakers. I think Tyler Scott might bear a little bit more investigation here. Maybe he'll go on my film cut-ups list. Catch him, and then maybe like Kiner and McClellan too in one of these games.
And then my last guy for this week is Devin Neal. He's been, quite the productive. He's had quite the productive 2 years as a former 3-star recruit. This week he had 32 rushes, 224 yards, a touchdown, along with 6 catches for 110 yards. Anytime a running back takes a hold of the RB1 duties in a Lance Leipold offense, you want it for CFF at the very least. Have those running backs had success in the NFL yet? No. Has Leipold even been at a school as good as Kansas? Also no. So maybe Devin Neal gets the attraction of scouts in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the profile that well, but he's got workhorse size, right?
5'11", 210.
Yeah, seems to have a little bit of speed to his game. So definitely an interesting guy to watch. Clearly he was on everyone's, C2C draft list last year. He was going fairly high, and I think a disappointment at ADP until the past few weeks where he's starting to show signs that maybe he is what we thought we were getting.
Yeah, he definitely showed out as a true freshman despite being a 3-star recruit. 118 carries last year, 761 yards, 7 touchdowns. I mean, he definitely seemed to be taking that backfield for himself, and then, maybe that wasn't the case at the beginning of this season, but it definitely is the case once again.
Who was it that transferred in that's been taking the work? It was
Kai Thomas.
Right. Thomas isn't that good though, right?
He's all right.
Great last year at Minnesota in limited work, but
Savion Morrison is there as well from Nebraska.
Yeah, right. And I think it's been just a real committee. But honestly, he's the best of the 3, I'd think.
The running back who actually has the second most carries though is Daniel Highshaw Jr., who I assume is just a random sophomore who's also on Kansas.
Interesting. Okay, cool. So we'll skedaddle right along into our core segment this week. We are playing Are They For Real? This one's been on my mind for a few weeks. There's so many, guys that I'm in love with, right? I love like young guys breaking out a little bit under the radar. Everyone likes being early or, first to these guys and seeing them before the national media is calling them superstars and so on and so forth. So I got a list of these guys. Kyle, if you got other people, like happy to throw them out there. If you want, we can probably dig up film on them too. But last week, while you weren't on, we kind of just like mashed together our rankings and our film session. So I thought, do a little bit of that again this week, and let's see how it goes. I don't know what order I have them in. Yeah, cool. So I have film to watch for all these guys, so we can kind of stop and talk about that as we go. And also, if we want to talk data and stats too, I have some of that. I don't have as much of the stats prepared as I would if we were really doing that. But on that sheet that I made, I did link the Fantrax pages for everybody so we can pull up their game logs and their season stats pretty easily. So I thought that we will fire it up with some J. Michael Sturdivant. Kyle, are you a fan of J. Michael like I am?
I have been. Absolutely. I was him and another wide receiver that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Were both guys who were under the radar, likes of mine in that freshman class 2 years ago.
Yeah, I had some shares of Sturdivant from freshman drafts, just those kind of like, later on, why not? He's got some speed. He's got a recruiting profile, going to a place where there's no one worth talking about typically, right?
Yeah.
It's adjustment right there. Yeah, and then obviously he didn't get on the field a ton last year, redshirted, limited action, but just quickly has taken over the wide receiver one role this year. I was flipping through a little bit of his stats, and for a second year guy, they're fine, if not completely dominant. 1.79 yards per route run. It's a decent number. That's not an NFL number at this point, but he's got time. And I love what we're seeing here, man. Just he's playing a possession role for them. Oh, we'll go back and get a little more J. Michael here.
And the quarterbacks he's doing it with this season have been pretty atrocious.
Yeah. Did you see the? I put a clip on Twitter when I was cutting this up. Man, there was like at his foot. That's a target, and then there's a couple other plays in that game that were just gross, dude. Did you watch this game at all? There's two just disgusting interceptions. Like one where you just like it's like I think it got batted away a little bit, and then just like one that got jumped so bad, short route, just embarrassing interception by who's the guy there right now? Plummer?
Oh no, Plummer. I don't know.
Plummer's at UCF.
I can look it up. I thought Plummer was at Arizona State.
Oh, is he? Who am I thinking of at UCF is playing well?
Plumlee?
Yeah, John Ray's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about the J. Michael film? Have you gotten to study him at all?
Cal. Oh no, Cal is starting Plummer. Jack Plummer.
Is there a couple of them?
It's the dude from Purdue. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And they benched him. And they benched him against Oregon in this game for Kai Milner, the true freshman, I think. It'll be interesting to see if that improves. I mean, Milner went 8 for 11 in this game, threw 2 touchdowns, so maybe he gets another opportunity. Actually, we did have a game in between this and then, and it was Plummer, so never mind.
So what caught your eye with Sturdivant?
I mean, this dude's an athletic freak. I mean, 6'3", right? 185 pounds, big dude. Ran a 10.39 100-meter dash in high school.
That's real bad.
Like, yeah, that is what caught my eye. As a recruit coming out, I mean, super fast. Was really good in the long jump too. I mean, 22-foot long jump. Basically 22 foot 10. Just an insane track athlete with also great size. And then watching the film at Cal, I mean, he's put together great film with ball tracking ability, great hands. Those are the things that really pop out to me.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think he's the kind of guy that probably needs to continue developing his route running. But I also see some things to like. He had an in-breaking route a couple of clips ago here. He doesn't get the ball, but that's it. Or it's an out, but, that's a decent out. Quickness, probably needs some more hip sync, right? A little more snap into it. And he does this here. This is a beautiful contested touchdown. Creates separation at the catch point. I think there was a replay on this too that had a little more where you could see the nuance of it. But Yeah, man. He's not playing, off ball, go routes and drags. He's a possession receiver for him. I think very excited for his future. Going to move on to Rome, or you got anything else with J. Michael?
Let's move on.
So you got to say, Rome has been, and I spelled his name wrong here. I will have to fix that. That is embarrassing. It's on the internet. But Rome's been like one of my guys for a long time. So, you might be less biased than me. What's your thoughts on Rome?
I mean, I hinted at it when we were talking about Washington or Nakua earlier.
Yeah.
This Washington team has wasted so much talent. Adunze, McMillan, Nakua, even like the Sam Heward. I mean, we'll lump him in there too, even though we're not sure if he really is that guy. But
right,
I like Adunze. I mean, he definitely has some great skills in his game, some speed and some ability to get open and make those catches. But I am interested to hear your take, even as a bit of a big fan, a homer, if you will, a player homer.
I am. That's right. I'm homeless, but I'm definitely a player homer. I get a little bit of anchoring on the guys that I like early. So Rome caught my eye in his freshman year with just this like a really nice, like poorly thrown ball, crazy adjustment to it, like down in the dirt. And it was his first big game, right? He went for 100 yards one time as a freshman. And, obviously we have a little bit more film on him now. And the things that you pointed out are, probably going to be the high point traits. He is fast. He can get by guys and he's long, right? He can go
6'3".
Probably needs to thicken up a little bit if he wants, a possession role. But man, that route right there, like he got grabbed, but he destroyed that DB there if he didn't throw him in the dirt. And that's right. That's what I'm starting to like a lot more about him. He seems to have a really natural feel for getting in the right place. Penix certainly has helped him. Don't get me wrong. Like this play is a beautiful ball by Penix more than any Rome skill. But I think his route running is pretty sharp. There was a double move earlier. I don't know if I can find it, but it was a really nice double move that he scored on. And you can't see the whole thing, but you can see it a little bit right here. He gets him, and I don't know. Is it a bad DB? I don't know. I know that he won that route handily.
Yeah.
See that on some other routes in here too. Some comebacks, just nice deceleration, good form on the deceleration. I think there's a lot to like about the kid. It makes me nervous that there's not more hype from the kind of the mainstream NFL pundits. But I don't know, man. I think the kid's got a lot of tools to be successful in the NFL.
I think those NFL pundits are a bit like myself. They don't really stay up to watch Pac-12 football.
You're probably right, man. And you know what? I was talking on a thread with Christian Williams the other day too, and I think like those of us that do obsessively Devy and draft scouting during the season get a little bit ahead of the curve over what we see on mostly on Twitter or in the mainstream media, right? I think a lot of the big time talking heads do their work after the season, right? When there's all 22 and it's a full stat to set of stats to look at. So maybe they'll catch up. Is he for real, Kyle?
I think so. I think there's an NFL future for a guy who's that fast and 6'3".
I think so. Yeah. I mean, D2, I don't know, but he's going to get on the field for sure. I think of him as like Robbie Anderson, maybe with a little bit more versatility. And Robbie Anderson's a good NFL player. He just has obviously fallen off in the past couple of years. My next dude, I think, is one of the most interesting guys on this list. Mr. Oronde Gadsden of Syracuse University. Kyle, have you gotten to watch much Oronde?
Yeah, let's just see if I can spell his name right.
The D's and the S's are very confusing.
Not a ton. And usually, honestly, when I watch Syracuse, I get a little locked in on Sean Tucker, one of my favorite players in college football. But I mean, this is another guy who's also really big, 6'5", 216, commanding quite the target share over there for a team that is a little bit run first for sure. So yeah, he's definitely been intriguing in the stat boxes for me. I haven't turned on the tape though.
Yeah, for a second-year player, the yards per route run is really nice. It's 2.5 right now. I don't care a ton for PFF grades, but I think they're at least descriptive. I was told that they're really an amalgam of various stats, right? So I don't mind looking at them as shorthand for, a snapshot of how a guy's doing. And PFF has him as their 22nd ranked wide receiver this year. Kind of a lot of guys playing college football, right? And it's, again, like it ain't the Bible. We know not to put too much stock in that. But it definitely validates me when, I'm seeing a third party confirm my priors here. And I mean, see, this guy's, he's got some high point ability, moves really well for 6'5".
And he's a true sophomore as well, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure right? His dad was a really famous Miami Dolphin too. I think there's a lot to like about this kid, and a lot of room to grow too. It's really his first year as a starter. Really minimal usage last year.
61 snaps last year.
Yeah,
and he's not playing a possession type role. I mean, this is a guy who has a 13-yard ADOT. Definitely being targeted down the field and making plays like that.
I mean, size, but that's ball tracking. That's that's technique. That's high pointing. Man, he just rips that. Like that would have been an interception if it was a lot of other wide receivers. And then even that too. He's beating the guy on this post route, or maybe that's a dig, but big guy that can run in breaking routes and out breaking routes. He's got some rounding, but any 6'5" wide receiver has some rounding. They're not snapping like a 200-pound guy. Man, and again, this is like a 20-year-old kid, right? Like so much room to grow physically, as well as get some Tucker mixed in there for you, Kyle.
And he can. I mean, it was a good block, so I think you put it in there, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
I think he's a guy who definitely fits that big slot mold that some of the NFL teams are looking for. He's played 77% of his snaps this season in the slot. He's like almost like a move tight end that you would list as a wide receiver because he's not going to block a defensive end ever. But
right. Yeah, and they did have him listed as a tight end to start the season in Syracuse, but he ain't a tight end.
Yeah,
the hand is not in the dirt there, I'd like to see him play outside more is my big thing on Oronde. But I think of all these guys, and I love a lot of these guys, I think he may have the highest ceiling and kind of like the clearest path to a ceiling, right? Just needs to kind of round out his game a little bit. So I don't want to spend too much time on this one, but I got to throw him in here. Jalen McMillan. Oh, it says Michael Penix. It's not. It's Jalen McMillan, I hope.
Michael Penix is in there too.
Yeah, Penix is in here, right? Gosh, got to fix that. Man, the stats aren't great for McMillan, right? Like right now, I mean, they're good. 2 yards per route run. He's like the 175th best ranked wide receiver for PFF. Certainly some plays that get me excited still. Some of what he does after the catch. But you got to question the NFL future with being overtaken by, Rome for the wide receiver one position. I don't know. I have really mixed feelings on McMillan.
I mean, maybe they're both good.
Maybe they're both good.
It's a possibility. Yeah, I mean, McMillan definitely seemed to have that role at the beginning of the season, at least. I mean, 87-2, 127-1, 94 yards in the first 3 games, and then kind of fell off. His best performance since then has been 81 yards. So, yeah, he's definitely turned into more of the wide receiver 2, a little bit more of a possession type than a big play wide receiver than Odunze. But I personally think they might just both be good players, at least good college players. I mean, maybe not both good NFL players. It's a high bar, but.
Well, I can see McMillan being a guy that rises late in the draft cycle. I remember, from him as a recruit, he's fast, like legit athleticism, right? It was top tier athleticism in that recruiting class. So I wonder if that sort of stuff comes out more, in the draft and the comp. I mean, look at that play. This is not a play that a lot of guys make.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Especially a lot of wide receivers.
Yeah. 4 or 5, just beats 5 guys to get in the end zone. So I think he's probably going to have to become a refined wide receiver if he wants to, get draft capital, where right now he might be, you see the athleticism. I think that Rome has, taken a role, but man, even the suddenness there, like, if this guy gets a lot of cushion, actually that wasn't that great. It was really poor form on the slowing down. But I think he comes back though. And I think he has a chance to be the real featured wide receiver for this offense, whereas I think Rome is going to the NFL this year. What do you think?
I think whether it's a good thing or not, there are some scouts that kind of get a little hung up on high school stars and whatnot. And I mean, this is a guy who's a top 10 wide receiver in his class, of 4-star prospect. I mean, there might be some remnants of that, that hype that might get some people to remember his name from the past and go like, oh yeah, I like that dude. So I don't know. But yeah, if either of them stay, they're going and they're like the bona fide wide receiver 1 in that offense. It's going to be quite the performance.
Yeah, I think that could really help him, honestly. And the question is if they both go back. And I'm sure you don't need to watch too much of these clips because they're burned into your memory in a good way. But my next guy, and since our original conversations about Hyatt, I got all in after he continued to dominate after that game. I made some trades for him. I'm under no illusions that he's a complete wide receiver, but I don't think he needs to be a successful NFL player. I think that Hyatt can be just fine being a Y, being schemed open, and just breaking big plays. Will Fuller is the obvious comp for him. I think he's probably not as refined as Will Fuller was in college, but I think he's got the natural ability and the speed to become that player.
Yeah.
I don't see him not getting drafted on day 2. He's going to run like 4.3, 4.2 something, and he's got awesome hands. So yeah, you may have to work on some route running, but man, some NFL team's going to fall in love with the stats and the speed for sure.
And not quite as fast, but like Henry Ruggs. I mean, that was a guy who, obviously got drafted in the first round, wasn't super productive, but he was doing things for his NFL team by pulling that safety deep every play,
right,
that only a few players can do.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hyatt's a much better player than Ruggs ever was, in my opinion. I think Ruggs was a little bigger, right? And you saw Alabama use him on maybe a little more short and intermediate work. But, man, I really think Hyatt gets undersold by a lot of people in our community right now.
Yeah, and part of my concerns right now, especially after what we saw last weekend, there were like glimmers of this, but Georgia really showed what it really is, and that's this offense. I don't think it's gimmicky, but it's simple. I mean, a lot of what these wide receivers run is like they'll run 10 yards, they'll decide where this corner is, and they'll either hitch or they'll go. And
Right.
So I don't know if he has that full route tree that an NFL team wants, but maybe he doesn't need it because he's just so fast.
Yeah, and you're gonna tell me a good OC isn't gonna look at the traits and say, you know what, we'll put in some work. You know what I mean? We get a good wide receivers coach. We can develop this kid. And even just he's in traffic there. It's not like he's 5 yards past the guy. He's got two dudes about to smash him. Doesn't break stride. Doesn't break his concentration. And it's not like Georgia blanked him either. He was still had what was like 65 yards or something, 7 catches. That's kind of what I was looking for from him in that game. I had no illusions. I was thinking maybe he'd have one big play, which I think he did.
Yeah.
He had like a 28-yard catch. Would you feel better about him if that catch went for a touchdown? Yeah, probably. But okay.
And
so this is
what I do want to hit on one thing with Hyatt. I mean, this is a guy who, when we get to draft season, everybody's going to knock him for he didn't produce year 1 and year 2. I agree he didn't produce in year 2. Like, for some reason, Heupel took over from Pruitt, and Heupel didn't want to use Hyatt in that way for whatever reason. Maybe Hyatt wasn't ready. He didn't understand what Heupel was doing. Maybe we can speculate all we want, but we'll probably never know. But that freshman season, I mean, he had people like hyped about him in Knoxville. Seriously. Obviously, he was like 4th on the team in receptions and whatnot, but he was behind Josh Palmer and Velus Jones in terms of wide receivers, both NFL guys. The other guy who cut into his snap share was Brandon Johnson, who was like a 6th or 7th year senior. Like, I mean, that guy's going to get on the field.
right.
So,
and who was
I thought, Jarrett Garantano.
Right.
I mean that offense was ugly. He had 20 receptions. He was 4th on the team. But Josh Palmer was the best wide receiver. He had 33 receptions.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean that offense was gross, and I thought Hyatt was still impressive.
Yeah, 20 catches, 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, 30 yards a game. As a freshman, that's fine, man. Like, that's decent production for a freshman. He got on the field, he produced, played a role, and you've certainly seen a lot of players, at least I have, because when I start getting interested in a guy, I just read everything anyone's put, into the internet about him. I don't know if it was Heupel or it was Hooker, but people have been talking him up. He put in work over the offseason. He worked on things that he needed to improve on. And, maybe that it was as clear as that. Maybe there was some nuance he wasn't getting, or he wasn't good in practice. Maybe the transitions, new coach and all that, affected him. I mean, these are kids, right? Like, these kids are 20, 21 years old, and, it's a lot of chaos. They're not all, professionals, right? I think there's a lot of reasons that he could have vanished as a sophomore. And we don't always see linear growth from these guys, right? Like, maybe he really made a big step from 20 to 21 or whatever it is. And, and that's why we look at best season stats a lot for wide receivers, right? So my next guy was one of my guys from earlier in the season, and I still think one of the most interesting evals here. It's Dominic Lovett. Lovett of Mizzo, right? Interested me because we all love Luther Burden. So who is this kid that is producing when Luther Burden is not producing, right? Sometimes it's as simple as that. I'm a simple man. I don't need a lot of crazy advanced metrics to get interested in someone. I don't know. Have you done any work on Lovett yet this year, Kyle?
I mean, when you see the box scores like that, you do kind of have to look into him a little bit. So I've kept a watchful eye over him, but not in the not with a closeness necessarily.
Yeah, 200-yard games, 300-yard games this season, including 148-yard performance against South Carolina. Admittedly, kind of a weaker squad, but he did put up 84 yards against Georgia. We know that that's impressive. We know their DBs are NFL players, right? That caught my eye and said, well, maybe this kid's for real. Yeah, I don't see crazy athleticism on the tape, but I do see a guy that's athletic enough, and I see a guy that's winning his routes, right there. You can see him get off the press, right, on that play. It's an incompletion, but he won his route against a serious cornerback. That's a zone play. I think he comes back to the quarterback here and catches a really crazy ball. Heads up play. Like NFL scouts love that stuff. Quarterbacks love that stuff. Quarterback was in trouble. He worked back. He found space. He made a play. I think he gets creamed here. Creamed.
Throw it away.
Yeah. Trying to run sweeps on George is probably a bad idea. Yeah, I don't know. And then I guess to get into stats a little bit on him.
3 yards per route run.
That real quick. What, did I say 20?
What? I said 3 yards per route run.
He's got 3 yards per route run. That is an NFL number. That is what Garrett Wilson had as a junior, right? Playing with CJ Stroud, right? I don't know. And he's playing with, who's it, Brady Cook? So, I see that. I take note. And then also, too, again, like blah, 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 disclaimer, PFF grade. He's their 8th best graded wide receiver this year. So he's doing something right.
Are they just not throwing the ball, or is he not on the field for all their throws?
He was not. I remember cutting this up. He was not on the field 100% of the time. And then I probably cut out some of the passing snaps too. Sometimes I get bad film or, just it's him just running off the field. You know what I mean? On a go route. I tend to cut a lot of those out. But I do remember his snap share wasn't crazy. This is also towards the beginning of the game. You'd have to think that that's gone up.
I mean, last week it was 33 snaps. The week before it was 25.
So, yeah, that's not even a full snap share at that rate, is it?
Yeah, I don't think so. That's something to monitor.
So what's going on there? You think maybe he doesn't?
I have no idea. I've been trying to figure out what's going on in Missouri all season. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, a lack of versatility, or I don't think he's playing in the slot. I think he's playing out wide. So this is my last wide receiver, and I think he's become a popular name lately. Again, like Keon Coleman from MSU, 2.08 yards per route run, which is a fine number for a sophomore. He's a big kid, right? I think he's 6'3", well over 200. Let me look at that before I say that too loudly.
And I mentioned when we were talking about Sturdivant, I said there were 2 guys that I liked in that class that stuck out to me as, sort of under the radar guys. Keon Coleman is the other one that I was going to mention.
Yeah.
The 61st wide receiver in his class, but yeah, I was a fan.
You liked him as a freshman. I mean, as a recruit.
Yeah. He was listed as 6'4" coming out of high school. Showed speed along with that height, showed jumping ability, just insane athleticism that I love to see out of wide receivers. And it's nice to see him put it together on the field as well.
Yeah. The thing that catches my eye most, and I didn't know he was 6'4" until this morning, or maybe it was earlier this week when I started doing prep for this, just because the way he moves like a smaller man, just laterally and, in his breaks. Man, I love that. Like big guy moves with agility. I'm a sucker for that. That's why I got really on Drake London late. I don't love the contested catch profile, but when I actually started watching his film and seeing him run digs, and just actually create separation in other ways than with his size. I became very impressed, and I'm seeing shades of that in Keon Coleman. I don't even think this is his biggest game. I think it was one of the ones after this. He really went completely berserk. But
Yeah.
look, I am, he stumbles a little bit, but
and it's not like he's doing it with like no competition. I mean, Jaden Reed is still on this team, and I think he's an NFL player. So like,
yeah. He's stolen Reed's lunch in the past few weeks, so I mean,
yeah,
Reed's
for sure.
has gone way down, and I was big on Reed because I liked Reed's tape last year. I thought he was going to explode this year as much as one can.
I thought he would go to the draft.
Yeah, right. I mean, I thought Naylor went to the draft. Reed was going to be the man. I think he had some injury issues too, but yeah, man, I think Coleman is for real.
Absolutely.
I got outbid on him on waivers in a league 2 weeks ago. It was one of the last leagues that he was in. It was one of the ones with one claim a week. And I bid $14 with like 26 behind me. Someone got him for 15. I was so
no.
Like, oh, that's the worst, right? When I'm like, no one's bid more than 12 on this type of player. I'm pretty confident 14 will do it. And I was like, I legitimately get like upset for like a day and a half. I won't stop thinking about him. And it's just nice ball tracking. That's a nice throw too. Peyton Thorne has his moments for sure. I don't think he's an NFL player, but
he's a good college quarterback.
Yeah, and got another year left too. Maybe he'll be a Stetson. Play 3 more years. I bet he'll be pretty damn good. You got anything else on Reed? I mean, I'm a big fan. I think he's an NFL player for sure. I think him and Gadsden are the ones that I would most wager on a crazy ascent in this next draft cycle.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to ignore those guys with that kind of size and agility and speed.
Yeah, and I think Coleman's a lot. He's put more of it together so far, right? But he's also got a lot more snaps last year. We got a couple of running backs I want to talk through. Looks like we got a little bit more time. But if you got to go, let me know, and we can certainly gloss over some of these.
I'm absolutely here. But
awesome. Right.
Honestly though, Maryland haven't seen a snap of Maryland football this year, so I'll let you lead the way with Hemby.
This is early in the year too, so this might be like a few plays, but I think it's worth talking about. I mean, the kid's definitely doing some impressive stuff, and and I think I saw Lejeune had a little bit better of a film of his too, with more plays. Oh yeah, this is the Michigan game. I think he had a decent game on this one. No, this is a lot of him getting swallowed up.
15 for 47 in this game.
Yeah, well, whatever, worth watching guys against a tough defense, right? Let me see if I can pull up. I know Brandon had a different game that might be, watching guys get smashed is tough sometimes. So Hemby, I think he's third in production for freshmen right now. Does that sound right to you?
No idea, but probably.
Yeah.
Interesting game log here. Just looking at it. In week 1 against Buffalo, he had 9 snaps, but got the ball on 7 of them and rushed for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yeah. One of the things that threw me off of him early too was Fantrax had him listed at sub 200 pounds, but everywhere else has him at like 210, like NFL size, right? So I know I'd picked him up in one league and then dropped him after a couple unproductive weeks, thinking probably a college guy, I can probably get better production. And then, of course, he explodes after that. But yeah, he's a bigger player. I've seen him at 215. I think he certainly has some make you miss ability, although we're not getting a heck of a lot of it in that game. The stat logs look pretty good. Whatever, I'll throw a link up after I post this for some better game film of him that Brandon has up. I'm interested in him. I'll say that. It's tough to forecast a running back freshman running back that wasn't flushed with pedigree as a day 2 guy, but you see a guy catching passes and putting up numbers at 210, 215 pounds. Certainly someone you want to pay attention to.
And something that's interesting to me is that they did have another freshman with pedigree at running back who, in is it Tevin White?
Not
or
Arizona.
the other Tevin. There's an Tevin something.
Tevin White. Yeah. I thought it was Ramon Brown.
Yeah, Ramon Brown. That's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's Brown, right? It's Ramon something. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like a 4-star, like a low 4-star, I think.
Yeah,
so
substantially more. Yeah, substantially more highly recruited. And then honestly, and Ramon isn't even the second best freshman on their team because they have Littleton. Yeah. I guess Littleton's a sophomore, but
yeah,
he's fun too. Tough to make it as a running back at 280 pounds, but man, it's fun to watch the kid play for sure.
Yeah, and Hemby's definitely taken this job by now. I mean, he's first among running backs and snaps by like over 300. So definitely somebody to watch who's at least got 2 more years of college production ahead of him.
Yeah. So Jaden Ott, what's your temperature on Ott?
I mean, apparently this California offense just has dudes. Sturdivant, Ott, but apparently they just need a quarterback to put it together.
Yeah, I'd love to see him get a decent guy out of the portal. They're probably not going to.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe they can pull recruits if they start having some success, but you certainly haven't seen that out of them since I've been a college football fan.
No.
But Ott does some nice stuff, and this I like. As much as it's tough to see the traits sometimes when they're getting swallowed up by the superior defense. There's a couple of nice plays where he misses, makes Oregon guys miss here. I'm a little bit dubious about him as an NFL player just because he's definitely undersized. He does have apparently track speed, although you don't really see him break anything big here. And you do see him get hit in the backfield a heck of a lot, although mostly I don't think they're his fault. PFF loves him for whatever that's worth. They had him as their 9th overall running back. I don't tend to pay a ton of attention to the player grades, but I do like their elusive rating for running backs. I actually put components of it into my model. And he is only 60th in elusive rating. I think his player grade comes out more from probably explosive plays, which he's not getting in this game.
Yeah, their player grades are always something that are interesting to look at because like there's always some guy who's like kind of a who kind of guy in the top 10.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like I just opened it up. Their second ranked quarterback is Curtis Rourke from Ohio.
Yeah, right.
But sometimes I've looked at these rankings and I've seen somebody in their grades who's like top 3 or something. Evan Hull, halfway through the season last year, was their number 1 rated running back. And so I was like, oh, maybe I should go pick this guy up, and it's paid off in spades, obviously. But I don't know. I kind of like them. Like they usually they lead you to at least college fantasy production, even if they don't lead you to NFL.
I'm with you. So if there's a guy on there and they're not a popular name, they're worth scouting, at least in my opinion. Usually worth a pickup. If you were watching their player grades, you were early to Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce was their first running back last year. And actually, when I did this, as I was going through PFF grades for running backs, I went back and looked at the 2021 top running backs. And some of the guys that we love weren't super high on it, but most of the guys that were highly rated by them were, like you said, at least, successful college running backs, if not NFL players. So, I think it's certainly, like you said, we're not going to live and die by them. They're not my rankings, but always a good idea to check a guy out. So the last player we're going to do for Are They For Real is Audrey Estime. which, man, Audric was off my radar until this week. I knew who he was coming in as a recruit, and then he got no run last year. And then looking at the game logs, man, he's been dominant for a couple of games in a row now, and actually had some good showings earlier in the year that seemed not to get much buzz, probably because Notre Dame was just a rotten team this year.
I fell for him as a recruit, if we're being honest. I mean, this is a massive dude. I mean, he's just like those pictures of his bulk were just insane. It's like this dude's a high schooler.
Sand all over him.
Yeah, one of those guys who you're just like, are you sure this guy's not 26 already?
Yeah. He just looks like he's like running at you to murder somebody, right?
But yeah, I mean, he's running like that in pads now against some good competition, obviously. So I think there's something. There might be something there.
Yeah, I mean, this is not me game film, but he's big, man. He's showing a little bit of wiggle. Nothing crazy. He's definitely more of a run you over type guy, but he seems to be making pretty good decisions. What we're seeing here, makes the right read here on the hole as you go through. I mean, that's a gaping hole, but it does look like it's his second read, right? Like the first read's collapsed. Yeah,
and there's that difference sometimes. Like, is he a pounder or is he a plotter?
Right.
Pounders have a role in the NFL, even if it's not necessarily worth fantasy points. They have a role. Plotters, no.
I would love to see him do something different here.
Oh yeah,
he's just kind of runs.
He got there eventually. He changed his mind after he ran into his own guy's back.
He smashed the linebacker. Oh, maybe I should go around these guys. One of the things that I've been coming.
Oh wow! Split out wide.
He was split out. Yeah, he didn't get the ball, but he was out wide. Ran the route.
That's something. That's definitely interesting for a guy who's 230 pounds.
Yeah, for sure. I've been trying to keep in mind too, if a lot of these guys, they're still developing, right? So even if he made some like atrocious reads in this, this is his first season that he's gotten a lot of playing action, playing the college game. I always think of JT in his first few games in the NFL, where he was just running into the back of his own lineman over and over because he wasn't adjusting to the speed. He was probably freaking out a little bit. And then, that's a nice pass pro. Stands this dude up. Ow.
Oh, yeah. Too bad Tyler Buchner got scared.
Ohio State free rusher, dude. That'll get him some attention, too, Boom. Sorry, dude.
Yeah. Notre Dame knows how to teach pass pro to those running backs, apparently.
Apparently, man. Kyron Williams is like my size and apparently can block in the NFL, so must have some killer technique.
It's interesting that he has this many snaps against Ohio State too, because this was their first game of the season.
Oh, this was Notre Dame's first game?
Yeah.
Interesting. Was Diggs hurt? I think Diggs got hurt, right? At the beginning of the season.
I thought he played. I can look it up.
Did he play in this game? I feel like I think Diggs was the guy we were all hyping in the summer, and then he was injured to start the season.
Yeah, I want to say many people were hyping Diggs. It was just like, this is the guy who's going to be next.
Right.
It shows he had 4 attempts against Ohio State. He might have gotten hurt during the game.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, or I could just be wrong, man. An elephant, I'm not. So that's what I had for Are They For Real? You got anyone else you want to talk about for a minute, Kyle?
I can just, rapid fire some names, like for sure. Tyler Scott, first one, just because that man's done some things for my fantasy team, and I want to know if there's a future.
Yeah, like we said earlier, he's going to exceed Pierce's best season. So that's not everything, but it's going to draft. It's going to draft. It's going to get attention for him for sure. And from what I've heard, he is legitimately fast. I studied a little bit of his film when he first came on the radar earlier this season. Right, he had those 2 big games back to back. I picked him up in some leagues, and I thought he did some really nice things. Not like a completely refined player, but certainly had some agility and and some ability to get open. So he's probably going to stay for another year, right? He's a G5 guy. Could be an NFL player. Could be a late round guy. Who knows? He's going to need He's going to need to mash next year.
If they find a better quarterback than Ben Bryant, he very well could.
It makes me so sad. I have so much Evan Prater just like rotting at the bottom of benches.
Yeah, Ben Bryant's like perfect if you want to win 9 games with that roster.
Yeah,
but
exactly, win 9 games, keep your job. That kind of guy.
I have another guy who I was when I looked at the list, I was kind of surprised he wasn't on there, and that's Charlie Jones out of Purdue. This is a guy who came out of nowhere and just absolutely balled out this season so far.
Yeah, so Charlie Jones isn't a my guy, but
he's not on there. Yeah, for sure.
I love sophomores and freshmen and the guys that come off the radar. But Charlie's interesting as heck. Apparently, he is fast, verified testing, and I think it shows up on tape too. That said, I don't care, man. He's a 5th-year player, Yeah. And again, like I even had smart guys I know are like, oh, but Iowa, and I'm just like, I am not a rigorous like data guy, but still there's like swaths of the math that I don't like to ignore. And the odds of someone breaking out when they have done nothing up to their senior year are infinitesimal. So I gotta I have some shares of him. I've traded for him in C2C where I want to win the college side, but I'm not prioritizing him as an NFL or a Devy pick. What's your thoughts?
Yeah.
Do you have takes?
Not just an Iowa guy, but before that, a Buffalo guy at wide receiver.
That's like the only place
you can pick him a little better. I think Charlie makes me question the mental ability.
Oh snap!
Buffalo had KJ Osborne that year too.
Oh really?
That's interesting.
Where did he graduate from?
Miami. Oh. That's cool. I don't know. He had 18 for 395 and 3 his freshman year, so that's something at Buffalo.
At Buffalo? That's a real freshman output. Get G5, but still. So what happened?
Yeah.
What happened between his freshman year and his
transferred to Iowa?
Yeah. But I don't know. Keegan Johnson performed last year, right? Keegan Johnson went for 450 yards or something as a freshman.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting how Iowa recruits wide receivers because these guys are athletic freaks and they just don't use them. I remember the 2020 class, there was like 2 dudes from Iowa and they both tested like out of their minds at these like small little combine things because we were doing COVID stuff. And I was like, maybe these guys are something. And you open their stats and it's like 25 receptions 3 years in a row.
Ooh. Yeah. Good place to go if you don't want to play in the NFL.
Yeah. Unless you're a running back.
Unless you're a running back or you play defense. All right. We want to do waiver pickups?
I think I'll toss you one more. Chase Brown, Illinois.
I love Chase Brown. I think he's an NFL player for sure. At least undersized is the only thing. Like the stats and the tape, I think if he was like 215, get him drafted and perhaps get him into the 3rd round. I mean, he's been dominant this year. The film looks great. The top end speed is there. He's making good decisions consistently. Like I like that running back destroying on like a generally poor offense because that like the only prerogative of that DC is to stop this one guy, and they can't stop him. So I'm in a mid-season draft right now, and I've been kind of eyeballing him. I grabbed everyone else is drafting freshmen because they're all excited about freshmen, but I've been kind of lucking out like Devy guys, right? And
I love mid-season drafts. They're always like that.
Yeah, right. And I'm just like, I want this 4-star. And it's like, he might not even play, I'm going to take Dominic Lovett, like
There
early.
was one. There was one last year where I got Garrett Wilson and Traylon Burks in like the third and fourth round.
What?
Yeah, I was like, I know these guys aren't going to play college again, but like, why aren't we picking them? They're going to be first round picks.
Yeah, I did my the NFL side. I just drafted a ton of wide receivers and like no running backs. Then I just
absolutely
running backs. Yeah, always a sound strategy. But I don't know. What do you think about Chase? Like, I think he's got a ton of skill. Just again, worried about the size. Maybe you should eat some cheeseburgers before the combine. Pull a Travis Etienne. Get that number up to 210, Chase.
Yeah, I mean he's listed at 205, so he's not far. And I mean he's 5'11, so he gets a little wiggle room with the weight, but the stats are just insane. Like no game this season has he got rushed for less than 100 yards. Yeah. Triple digits in 9 games is pretty insane. To already have 1,300 rushing yards and there's still 3 games left.
Is he the NCAA's leading rusher right now? Must be.
Is he? I mean, who else would it be? Maybe Corum. Maybe like Brad Roberts.
Yeah, Corum, Roberts, or the kid from.
No, it is Brown by 80 yards ahead of Dwayne McBride, actually, second.
Yeah, I definitely am interested in trying to acquire Chase leading up to the draft, but he's probably on win now campus to Canton leagues, right? With his cost, a lot of those teams are probably in the championship on his back.
Yeah.
And I honestly have tried to trade for him. He was one of my targets on my contenders, and people that have him are convinced he's an NFL player. I'll tell you that. Always makes me sad.
All right, let's move on.
Okay, an hour and 20 in here, my friend. So, fortunately, we don't have a ton of content for the last couple segments here. Why don't you start if you have any waiver pickups that you were eyeballing this week, either Devy type C2C or contender?
I don't really look into them much. I am all out of waiver pickups.
That's what I only started doing the segment on the show when I ran out, Kyle.
You're still looking just really sad you can't pick them up.
Maybe I can help someone. So, hi guys. I thought this Ed Sadie guy was probably going to be on waivers literally everywhere. I don't know why he exploded this week, but maybe he's taken the role. He's a junior, so he's certainly not a Devy guy, but if he's taken over a high volume attack for the second half of the season, that's a guy worth looking at. Todd Washington is on waivers, even in leagues of mine that have open waivers. I don't know. When's Addison coming back? When's Mario coming back? What if Addison just sits out the rest of the season? He's going to be a first-round draft pick, even if he just quits football right now. So why would he come back, and unless he thinks that they're going to win the, Pac-12 championship or whatever. Which
they definitely can.
Yeah, definitely can. So anyways, Taj, I think, has shown that he can produce in that offense. And, my other thing on Taj is, Addison's going to the draft, right? So next year it's going to be Taj and Mario. And Mario's good, I think, but he hasn't shown me anything that tells me that Taj can't have a big piece of that offense. And like maybe the CJ Williams kid or whoever their freshman.
Gary Bryant will be back, right?
What's up?
Gary Bryant. He's like sort of redshirting this year. I think he just kind of like wasn't playing and he was like, just give me a red shirt. I don't know if he'll transfer out.
He literally took a red shirt. I didn't know that. I thought he just wasn't getting time.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll transfer out after that or if he's just going to wait until Addison's gone. I don't know.
You'd have to think that one of those guys should transfer, right? Either like Todd.
Yeah, especially with both Branch and Lemon coming in. Like those guys are both legit.
Yeah, and they'll probably play right away too.
Yeah.
Although those guys are a profile that, because Taj is a small guy too. Like Bryant and Taj and Mario all none of them are 6 foot, right? They're all
Mhm.
kind of. I don't know that much about Taj, but I think he's like a 5'11", little undersized guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and Lemon's big and long, right? Branch.
Lemon's 6 foot. Branch is 5'10".
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was saying that maybe those guys bring something different. The kid from this year, Williams, was a bigger receiver though, right? I think like 6'1", 6'0", 6'1".
Not sure.
None of
But
them are,
yeah.
210 pounds because they're freshmen, right?
Yeah.
And then the other guy that I think is worth looking at for me is the quarterback that you mentioned when we were talking about Sadie. Do you remember the guy's name
EJ
again?
Warner.
EJ Warner. So yeah, I'm gonna look into him.
I'll
Yep.
throw one out there actually for your teams that aren't competing. Trayvon Rudolph. I mean, this is a guy who had 17.8 fantasy points per game last season. Has not played at all this season. In leagues with small IRs or no IRs, he definitely could have been dropped. His roster percentage is down to 28%. So if you have an open roster spot, just use a free agent pickup instead of a draft pick in next year's supplemental.
I like that. I like that a lot. And then now that we're talking about it, who is the kid from Liberty that I was talking about earlier?
Demario Douglas.
Demario Douglas, very productive last year, right in his second year. Has been coming on of late, even with a mixed bag of quarterbacks. Several really big, good games in a row, and hopefully get some consistency in his fourth year next year. I like him as a pickup as well.
52% rostered on Fantrax.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good stuff. Thanks for that, Kyle. Okay, we got a couple of trades of the week coming at you. I'll lead off since you led off everything else, Kyle. So I made a couple trades this week, and these were actually dynasty trades. I don't think I made any cross roster trades except for overpaying for Jalen Hyatt in a bunch of places. We talked.
I want to see those.
Oh, you want to see? We talked about one last week.
Okay.
I sent a team, and this played into it as well. So a team that was one spot ahead of me in the college rankings. I gave them Sky Moore, who I'm done with. I think Sky is not going to be a role player. I don't think he's going to be a star. And I gave him Dane Key, who I have questions about his ceiling. And then another no-name piece for Hyatt. And I think I got a pick back. But part of it for me was I am hamstringing one of my competitors at winning money. It was the number 3rd team, and I was number 4. So I like doing that, trying to get a piece from.
Well, you kind of helped him out this week because Key had 2 touchdowns, if I'm remembering correct.
It's a best ball league too, so. Fuck. Hyatt got 12 points or something. Okay, and then all right. So this week the Devy trade, the dynasty trades, I shipped out Mike Evans for a 24 first, probably fair value. I was looking at maybe a little rebuild, partly because I'm in quarterback hell. My quarterbacks are Russell Wilson, and then I have Kenny Pickett, and I had Jameis Winston. So I was screwed, right? Just all kinds of trouble. Try to get some value for Evans while I can. And then today I started scrolling because I'm still in 6th place. So I'm not going to get Stroud. I'm not going to get Young. And I probably don't want to bet my future on Hooker. Sorry, Kyle. So I sent a 21 first in Jameis, who I think is a backup from now on for Geno Smith.
For Geno. Oh.
What do you think? I'm in on Geno, dude.
I'm not a fan of that trade, no. I think a first is too much to pay for Geno.
Okay, so if he has another year like this next year,
does he though?
Cheaply? It's a 24 first too.
I think if he has another year like this next year, you've bought him for fair value.
Okay, so for me, I
don't like taking that bet.
I hear you. I don't know what quarterback. Who's going to sell me a top 10 quarterback for a single first? Who can you get for less than that? Cousins? You're probably not getting Cousins for that.
I think you can get Cousins for a single first.
Yeah, if it's a team that's not competing.
Yeah.
Maybe, but that's like the cutoff, right? Like you're not getting like I had a guy told me that Tua was worth 2 firsts and a second. Forget about getting the top 5 guys, right? Like that's impossible. So now you're down to like Trevor Lawrence. I was looking at no one's giving you Trevor for a first.
Not anymore.
No, I mean Fields. I've been throwing like big offers at trying to get him all season, even before the past couple of weeks. And most of the people that had him were kind of rebuilding anyways, so that wasn't happening. I mean, Daniel Jones is probably a guy I could have got for the same price as Geno. I don't know. Like they're winning games, but they're trying to hide him, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be a popular. I think I get smashed if we put it on Twitter, but those ones that I think that a year from now might look good for me.
I don't know. My other worry is almost like it's time for Pete to go, right? As head coach in Seattle. If they get a new head coach, does he want a new quarterback? Does he want
does he break it down?
a first-round quarterback? Yeah.
Yeah, I could get hurt on that. But, I mean, what's their record right now? Like a 500 team, right?
Yeah, I think they were winning their division before today.
Right. So, I mean,
which their division has been so bad, even though they're supposed to be really good.
Right. So, what's their best prospect as a quarterback for next year?
They're 5-3.
I mean,
Hooker. I think if Levis goes, he's actually drafted over there, not in the top 10. But
yeah, I think by the end of the season, he won't be a top 10 guy, anyways. But I mean, Levis is bad. Hooker's good, but he's probably capped out, right?
Stetson Bennett.
I mean, yeah, if I needed a quarterback in this draft and I wasn't a top 10 team, I might just be taking shots with like a second or third rounder. I just
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, yeah. The issue is there's no path that he's a top 10 quarterback, but he could easily be replacement level starter with Stet.
Oh, Stetson?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, he can. Yeah, he can probably come in. I see him as like a backup that can come in and keep the ship afloat for a couple of games.
Stetson reminds me of Gardner Minshew. Good player to have in the locker room. Will fill in valiantly at starting quarterback if your guy goes down. Yeah. But yeah. I hate Georgia, but I actually really like Stetson Bennett. He's like the perfect mix of like underdog and cocky.
Yeah. Well, I think this year the cockiness comes out. He's a little strut.
Yeah.
Last year he was just like holding on to the starting job for his life until we got the ship.
All right. Well, you said you were in quarterback hell. I'll tell you about quarterback hell. 16-team league, so 16-team super flex league. Options are rough. I'm starting Joe Flacco this week. My other quarterbacks were Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, and Daniel Jones, all on bye. So I decided it's time to mail in this season. Get the max points forward down so I can get an earlier draft pick, get more draft picks. I traded Jamar Chase, which sucks because he could still be a piece next year. He will be a piece next year. But I got 2 top 6 picks in the 2023 freshman rookie draft and Josh Palmer.
How do you know they're top 6 picks? Are they just like the teams are so far down that they won't?
I mean, I'm banking on there not being a ton of football left to play. It's a max points for. They are 5th to last and 6th to last in max points for. So
right. So like worst case scenario, they're top 8 picks, right?
Yeah, I'm 7th, so I'll probably pass them with my own pick, but I have my own pick. So
right. Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. Yeah, so you'll 3 top half of the first round picks in that draft. I'm all about selling players for max value. I will say that I think Chase has, like 3 more years at max value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in the situation you're in, I think the worst thing you can do in a dynasty league or a Devy league is get stuck in the middle. like your team being just good enough to hobble into the 6th seed or just miss
Yeah.
the playoffs every year. Like that's
I
hell,
have
man.
I have like 4 star players, but we start shoot, like 7 in this league, 8 in this league, and like my bottom 4 are just horrible. But I have like Austin Eckler, Kenneth Walker, Jamar Chase, and Debo. And obviously Debo hasn't played. Eckler was a little disappointed to start. So things have not gone my way. So it's time to blow it up a little bit, see if we can't recoup some value.
Yeah, I like it, especially in a really deep format. All about breaking down because you might the chances of hitting on a chase with one of those 3 picks are small, but if all 3 of them turn into top 40 assets, looking back in a year, you've probably won on value, and you've certainly helped your team because you're not winning if you're putting up 7 points in 3 of your spots. You're done. Yeah, I don't hate it, man. I'd sell Eckler too, though. Can't you get off Eckler?
I'm trying my best.
And if you can get 1 first for him, I mean, someone's got to get a first and a second, I guess. If it's like a later pick than 112, I definitely want more than that.
Yeah, I offered him for Garrett Wilson and got declined, which I was a little surprised.
Yeah,
because that guy's number 3 in the league. He would have.
Right, you think you should take it, right, and win money, but sometimes people don't get that. I would.
Yeah, and I mean Wilson's also putting up points, so like it's hard to buy a promising guy who's still putting up points.
Yeah, I mean Eckler's like a top 5 player, and Wilson's had like 2 games of over 10 points in the past month, right?
Oh, he put up another good one today. So
yeah, was he like 8 for 65 or something?
And a touchdown.
Nice.
8 for 92. No, just 8 for 92 actually. No touchdown.
Yeah. Yeah, man. All right. I think that about does it for us. We're well over the hour and a half mark, but Kyle, as always, I appreciate you coming on and joining us here.
Time is a flat circle. Time is a social construct. It does not matter how long it takes.
It's just a loop.
Yeah.
Oh, usually we got the 2 kids on. I got to take their toddlers out. At least I'm lucky enough that my girlfriend takes a toddler during this era. I will take him later. Any parting shots, my friend? It's been a pleasure. You got anything to add?
Tennessee's still going to the playoff. That's all I got.
I think you're right. So, okay. Well,
hopefully we get up to 3 somehow and we don't have to play Georgia again.
I don't know about that, dude. I think you're lucky if you squeak it as 4, frankly, but I do think there's a strong argument over Alabama or Michigan, right?
Oh, definitely over Alabama after the LSU game.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
LSU beating them, right? Okay, my man. All right, I'm Eric at EK Baller on Twitter. Please subscribe to the channel. We need your support desperately. And please follow my friend Kyle at KL Fantasy on Twitter, and also catch his work with the Undraftables and
Undroppables.
All my friends.
You'll find me on the Undrafted podcast at some point with Mr. Jax Falcone.
There you go. And then it's the understudy is what you're doing. Is that the Devy?
There's not really a name for it. We just call it the Devy department, for now.
Well, as always, my friend, it's a pleasure to have you on here. I couldn't do it without you. And until next time, enjoy some football.